We continue now at the top of Daf Kufyat Aleph Amud Beis in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 111b. On the previous summer of Yehuda Nesiya asked Rav Yanai, how do we know that the son takes precedence over the daughter when it comes to inheriting from the mother? And Rav Yanai said we learn it out from the word matos that compares the mate ha'av to the mate ha'em. Just like by inheriting from the father, the son takes precedence over the daughter, so too when it comes to inheriting from the mother, the son takes precedence over the daughter. So Rav Yehuda Nesiya said to Rav Yanai, if that's the case, the same should be true when it comes to the double portion of the firstborn. Would we say, just like the firstborn gets a double portion when inheriting from the father, so too from the mother? And the Gemara now continues, Amar le l'shame, so Rav Yanai said to his attendant, good, less deinet savi l'melef, take me away from here, this person doesn't want to learn. And the Gemara continues, V'tayim amai, but what is the reason? Why is it that we say that there's a double portion only when inheriting from the father and not when inheriting from the mother? And the Gemara says to that, Amar Abaya, Abaya says, Amar Krutz, because the pasuk says, B'chol asher yimotzei lo, it says everything that is found to him, it uses the word lo to him, and we darshan that to mean lo, v'lo lo, means to him and not to her, and therefore we understand that the double portion applies only from the father and not from the mother. And the full pasuk that's being quoted over here is Kias ha-bechor ben hasnu yakir, that the Bechor, the son of the wife that he hates, that's the one that he should recognize, Lases lo pishnaim, to give him a double portion. Now, even though the word lo in the pasuk is actually referring to the Bechor himself who's getting the double portion, but we're darshaning it lo v'lo la, that it applies to the father's estate, but the idea of a double portion does not apply to the mother's estate. But the Gemara continues, but maybe we would say that that's only true if you have a young man who's never been married that marries a widow, and she's already been married, she's already had children from another marriage. So there we say that the firstborn for the father in that situation will not get a double portion from the mother because she was previously married and she had children. But let's say a young man who's never been married, who marries a basula, a young woman who's never been married, so now this person is the firstborn for both the father and the mother, so hachanami the shakel. So maybe there we would say that indeed the firstborn would take a double portion even from the mother's estate. And the Gemara says to that, we have another pasuk, Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Reishis ono, this is the same pasuk. The pasuk says, Kias ha-bechor ben hasnu yakir, losas lo pishnaim, bechol asher yimotzei lo, ki hu reishis ono. It says the first of his strength, and we understand that to mean ono, velo ona, means the first of his strength and not the first of her strength. And so therefore the idea of a Bechor getting a double portion only applies to the father's estate and not to the mother's estate. But the Gemara says Reishis Ono is needed for something else. Hahumi boile, lavo achar nefalim, lahave Bechor lenachalo. That pasuk which says Reishis Ono is saying even if you have a situation of a firstborn, but let's say there were other miscarriages before that firstborn was born, so maybe you would think he doesn't get the double portion. So Reishis Ono says he is a Bechor lenachalo when it comes to inheritance. He is considered a firstborn in that situation. How do we learn that from the word ono? Because Misha Libo Dava Olav means the person who the heart of the father would be grieved. He would be grieving if that firstborn would die. It would be as if he lost his as if he lost his firstborn. Yatza Zesha Ein Libo Dava Olav. That comes to exclude a situation of a non-viable firstborn who the father would not grieve over in the same way, and that's being learned from the word ono, because the word ono is like from the word aninus. When a person is grieving, there's a person is an aninus, and so the idea is those nefalim, those miscarriages would not count in terms of bechor lenachala, and rather that firstborn child, the child that would be born after the miscarriages, would be considered the bechor lenachala, and that's what we learn from Reishis ono. So how can we learn out ono velo ona? And the Gemara says to that, Imkain, if so, lema kra ki hu reishis on. The pasuk could have just said ki hu reishis on. My ono. Why does it say ono? You can actually understand both. Shma min atarti. You can understand both limudim. We learn ono velo ona as well. And so therefore we say again, not only by a bachor shanasa almana, but even by a bachor shanasa besula, we're learning out that there is no double portion when it comes to the mother's estate. But the Gemara still says vakati. But still, even if we have two drushes, ema hanimili almon shanasa besula. Maybe that's only true by an almon. Let's say the father, let's say the husband is a widower and he marries a basula, a young woman who has never been married. So then we will say that there's going to be an exclusion in that case from the double portion of the mother's estate. Aval bachar shanasa basula, but still, let's say you'd have a young man marry a young woman and now he's a bechor to both of them. So still, hachanami the shakel, still, maybe we would say that he takes the double portion in the mother's estate. So we would need another source. And the Gemara says, Ela Amar Rava, rather Rava says, Amar Kratz, because the pasuk says, says lo mishpat habechora, to him is the mishpat of the firstborn. Mishpat habechora leish. Now we learn out from there. It says lo to him, that there's a concept of firstborn leish velo mishpat habechora leisha, and there is no mishpat habechora leish. And what that means to say is, again, inheriting from the father. This is a drasha the Gemara is making. When inheriting from the father, there's a concept of a double portion for the bechor, but when inheriting from the mother, there is no double portion for the bechor. And the Rashbam explains, lo mishpat habechora, hai lo dorish le lagabe av. The Gemara here is darshaning the word lo, that it refers to the father. Lo marsha mishpat habechora benichsei ho'ish velo benichsei ho'isha, meaning to say, the idea of getting the double portion applies to the property of the man and not the property of the woman, meaning the property of the father and not the property of the mother. And the Rashbam notes, v'hacha leka l'meimer hani mili bebocher shenasa almona kedil'el. Here you can't have the same arguments you had before, that maybe this pasuk is only talking about when a young man marries an almana, marries a widow. Mishpat habechora, because from the fact that it says the mishpat, the law of the bechor, so klal hu shekol al dine bechora b'nichsayish, it becomes like a general rule. The halachas of bechora only apply to the property of the man, v'lo b'nichsayish, and not to the property of the woman. And so therefore you don't have any of those counter arguments that you had above. This pasuk says clearly that the halacha bechor applies only to the father's estate and not to the mother's estate. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, "V'ishes ishto v'chulu," that a husband inherits his wife, but a wife does not inherit her husband. The Gemara says, "Mino hanimili," from where do we know this? The Tana Rabbanan, because the rabbis taught she'ero. It says in the pasuk the word she'ero. Zu ishto. This refers to his wife. Melamed shehabal yoresh es ishto. This teaches that a husband inherits his wife. Yachol afi tirashenu. Now I might think that she inherits him as well. Talmud lomar v'yorash osa. The pasuk says that he inherits her. Hu yoresh osa. He inherits her. Ve'ein he yoresh es osa, and she does not inherit him. And the full pasuk over here is v'mein achim liaviv, if there are no brothers to the father, unesatem es nachalaso l'she'ero, and you give his inheritance to she'ero, which we're now interpreting as the wife. The Gemara is going to ask, this seems backwards, because it sounds like the wife is inheriting over here, not that the husband is inheriting from the wife. In any case, the pasuk says unesatem es nachalaso l'she'ero hakarov elov, his inheritance goes to she'ero, mi mishpachto v'yorash osa. Pasuk says he inherits her. That's the pasuk that the Gemara just brought, that he inherits her and she does not inherit him. In any case, the Gemara continues and asks, but that's not what the psukim are saying. If you read the simple reading of the psukim, is unesatem es nachalaso l'she'ero. It's the she'ero that's doing the one that's inheriting. It would sound like, on the contrary, the wife is actually inheriting the husband. And the Gemara says, Amar Abai, Abai says, Taratzach, you can answer up the pasuk as follows: unesatem es nachalaso l'karov elov she'ero v'yarash osa. Means you give the nachala, you give the inheritance to the one who's closest to him, and then she'ero v'yarash osa means that he inherits she'ero, he inherits his wife. The Gemara says, Amar Rava, Rava says, Sakina charifa mifsaka kra, you're using a sharp knife to cut up the psukim. You can't just move all the words around in the pasuk and reassemble the pasuk in a different fashion. El Amar Rava, rather, Rava says, Hachi kamar, this is what the pasuk is saying, unesatem es nachalas she'ero lo. Instead of reading the pasuk as unesatem es nachaloso l'she'ero, instead you make it she'ero lo, you take the lamed and the vav, you take the lamed off l'she'ero, and you take the vav off nachaloso, and it becomes nachalas she'ero lo. You give the inheritance of his wife to him. Kasavar, and the reason why Rav is able to say this is because he holds gorin umosif and v'darshan. You can take away and add on and make a drasha, meaning you could take some letters away from some of the words of the pasuk and assemble a new word over there, and then it becomes nachalas she'ero lo. And the Gemara continues, V'hai tana ma'isila mehacha, but the following Tana learns this idea from here, from the following source, a different source of the idea that the husband inherits the wife. The Tanya, as we learned in a brisa, v'yorash osa, it says in the pasuk v'yorash osa, malamed shahabal yoresh es ishto. This teaches that a husband inherits the wife. Now that's the same source we brought above, divrei Rabbi Akiva. That's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, meaning the source we brought above is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. However, here's the alternate source. Rabbi Yishmael Omer, Rabbi Yishmael says, Eino tzarech, it's not necessary to learn from v'yorash osa, harehu Omer. It says in the pasuk v'chol bas yoresh es nachala mimatos b'nei Yisrael liechad mimishpachas v'gomer. It says any daughter who inherits, and we understand that to mean b'hasabas habal hakasa medaber. This pasuk is talking about the fact that you're going to have the land is going to go from one tribe to the other. The pasuk is talking about if you have a situation of a daughter who is inheriting, so she's supposed to be marrying somebody from the same tribe. Otherwise, you're going to have the land go from one shevet to another shevet. And there's a question over here: what exactly are we talking about? So the Brisa is saying we're talking about hasabas habal. We're talking about the fact that the husband's property, that property is going to, because of the fact that a husband inherits the wife, that's how you're going to have a transfer of the property from one tribe to the other. That's what it means by Sabas Habal Hakosim Medaber. The pasuk is talking about the fact that you can end up having property moving from one sheva to the other because of the fact that it's inherited by the husband. V'yomer, and it says in the pasuk, V'losisav nachalo livnei Yisrael mimata el mata. It also says that the inheritance shouldn't go from one tribe to the other. All of these psukim are indicating that you can have a potential scenario where property is going to go from one tribe to the other, and if it's talking about hasabas habal, if the reason why it's going from one tribe to the other is because of the fact that the husband inherits the wife, that becomes the source for the idea that the husband inherits the wife. V'yomer, it also says, V'losisav nachala mimata lamata acher, the same idea. It says that the inheritance shouldn't go from one tribe to the other. Again, you see this idea of hasabas habal, you see the idea that a husband can inherit his wife. V'yomer, and it also says, V'elazar ben Aaron Mace, it says that Elazar, the son of Aaron, died. Vayikbru aso begivas Pinchas beno. It says that he was buried in the property of Pinchas, who was his son. And so the Brisa says, V'chi minayin lePinchas shelo hayalo leElazar. How did Pinchas have property that Elazar did not have? How is it possible? Because Pinchas was the son of Elazar. How did he have property that did not belong to the father? Why would it say that Elazar was buried in the property of Pinchas? Elamalamid shenasa Pinchas isha. Rather, it teaches that Pinchas married a woman who Mace, and she died. V'yarshan, he inherited her. So again, you have a source that a husband inherits the wife. V'yomer, and it also says in the pasuk, Usukuv holid as Yoyer. It says that Skuv gave birth to Yoyer. Vahilo esrim v'shalosh orim be'eretz HaGilad. And Yoyer had 23 cities in the land of Gilad. Again, the same idea. It seems that he had property that his father did not have. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph.